Audrey, I've got something on tonight. You go ahead and eat without me. I read the text from my boyfriend, unsurprised by yet another broken promise. Today marks our third anniversary, as well as my birthday. I didn't bother reminding him of the significance of the date, it wouldn't have made a difference anyway. In the early days of our relationship, when Gareth stood me up, I'd remind him, and he'd make amends with a bouquet of roses. But over the years, he's grown increasingly impatient with such gestures. I glanced at the neatly set table, then at my carefully chosen outfit. In the past, a message like this would have sent me retreating to my bed, crying myself to sleep, only to emerge the next day as if nothing had happened. This time, however, I picked up my phone and texted my best friend, "You free? Fancy a night out?" Within seconds, she replied, "Give me 10 minutes. I'll be right there." While waiting for her to arrive, I ducked into the loo to touch up my makeup. As I stepped outside, I spotted my friend, looking absolutely stunning in her party gear, turning heads left and right. She beamed at me as I approached. "You look gorgeous tonight. Where are we off to?" I asked as I climbed into her car. "There's this new pub that's just opened. Heard it's quite good. Shall we check it out?" She started the engine and set the sat nav. Noticing my gloomy mood during the drive, she ventured, "Why don't you break it off with that git Gareth?" I gave her an odd look. "You really can't stand him, can you?" Truth be told, my friend had never warmed to Gareth since we started dating. Our get-togethers always seemed to end prematurely because of it. "When was the last time you two went on a proper date? When did you last have a meal together?" Her voice carried a hint of irritation. Her questions left me silent. "When was the last time Gareth and I had dinner together? A week ago? A month?" To be honest, I couldn't remember. Despite living under the same roof, we rarely shared a meal. I'd complained to Gareth about this, but he'd brushed it off, saying, "Work's been mental lately. It's normal. Things will settle down soon." We were a couple sharing a flat, yet living like strangers. Lost in these thoughts, I leaned against the car window, watching the scenery blur by. Seeing my state, my friend sighed and said no more. Upon entering the pub, we were hit by a wall of chaotic music and the pungent smell of smoke and alcohol. The sensory overload made me feel a bit queasy. Taking in the raucous scene, I had second thoughts. "Maybe I should head home," I said, turning to my friend. "Oh, come on. We're already here," she protested, dragging me to the bar. "What'll you have?" "Anything. You choose." I wasn't much of a drinker. After ordering our drinks, my friend's eyes locked onto the bartender juggling bottles behind the counter. I snuck a glance. He was quite handsome, with bedroom eyes that seemed to smolder. As I was sizing him up, he looked back at me. The moment our eyes met, my heart skipped a beat, and I quickly turned my gaze towards the dance floor. However, as someone with a boyfriend, how could I allow another man to capture my attention? Just as I was feeling flustered, I suddenly spotted a familiar figure in the center of the dance floor. I clutched my handbag tightly, my eyes fixed on my boyfriend who was dancing intimately with another girl. I couldn't be mistaken. He was wearing the outfit I had picked out for him this morning, and I even recognized the girl he was dancing with. It was Lily Spencer, the new junior member of Gareth's society. Lily had joined the society a month ago and was still learning the ropes, so Gareth often had her shadow him to teach her the ways. I had been jealous about this before, but Gareth thought I was being unreasonable and stormed off. Now I realize, he must have been feeling guilty at the time. My best friend noticed the change in my expression and followed my gaze, just in time to see Gareth and Lily kissing. Her temper flared immediately. "That bastard, I'm going to slap him silly." I held her back, and she looked at me in disbelief. "He's cheating on you, don't tell me you can't see it." "Wait a moment," I said. I took out my phone from my bag and sent Gareth a text. "Gareth, where are you?" After sending the message, I watched as he received it. My heart sank when he ignored it, but after I sent a few more, he finally stopped dancing with an annoyed look on his face and pulled his phone out of his pocket to glance at it. Seeing Gareth stop, Lily pursed her lips and seemed to be saying something. I saw Gareth tap something on his phone with one hand while gently patting Lily's head with the other, as if comforting her. I looked at my phone and saw his reply, "I told you I'm busy, don't bother me if it's not important." Seeing the clearly irritated tone of the message, I couldn't help but let tears fall. My friend saw it too, and this time she rushed over before I could stop her. I watched wide-eyed as my friend slapped Gareth hard across both cheeks. Gareth was stunned by the slaps, but when he realized who it was, he immediately snarled, "You again? What's wrong with you?" My friend berated him, "You already have Audrey, yet here you are fooling around. Do you even know what day it is today?" "This is none of your business," Gareth frowned, his voice not hiding his unfamiliarity and impatience. "Stop meddling in my affairs with Audrey." "Oh really?" My friend raised her chin, gesturing for him to look behind. "Take a look at who's standing there." Hearing this, Gareth suddenly had a bad feeling. As soon as Gareth saw me, he anxiously ran over, wanting to explain, but at that moment, Lily suddenly crouched down and started retching. Gareth stopped in his tracks, torn between the two of us. Seeing this, I gave a mocking smile and turned to the handsome waiter, asking, "How much for the drinks I ordered earlier?" The waiter looked at the red-eyed woman before him, raised an eyebrow, and said in a low, amused voice, "It's on the house. Congratulations on your newfound freedom." I let out a cold laugh, took a sip from the glass in front of me, said thank you, and then left. Now Gareth was truly panicking. He abandoned Lily and tried to chase after me, but was knocked down by a punch from my friend. "Stay away from Audrey from now on, or I'll beat you every time I see you," my friend threatened before running after me. In the car, my eyes blazing with anger, I frantically searched through my phone for Gareth and Lily's social media accounts, trying to figure out when these two had started their affair. I searched again and again, but couldn't find any evidence. Finally, I discovered a clue on Meredith Lyle's roommate's Twitter. The roommate seemed to envy Meredith, constantly posting about her daily life on a secondary account, completely pretending to be her. On her Twitter, I saw many things about Gareth and Meredith. Holding hands on dates at the amusement park, watching fireworks together at night, even running up to the hills to see the sunrise. For my memory, those excuses were sarcastically laughable. A month ago, Meredith's roommate tweeted, "I'm sick, and my boyfriend stayed up all night to take care of me without sleep or rest." I remember that day we had planned to go to a newly opened restaurant, but halfway there, Gareth was called away by a phone call. At that moment, I asked him, "Who's looking for you? What's so urgent?" Gareth calmly showed me the chat log on his phone. "It's about some growth point issues in my supervisor's experiment, they need me to help out." I looked at the profile picture of the other person, and it was indeed them. However, I inadvertently noticed that while Gareth's professor did need him, after resolving the issue, he went to take care of Meredith, who was ill. That night I waited for him alone, sending messages and calling him, but he only managed a brief reply. It turns out he was busy accompanying his little junior. My lips trembled slightly, my eyelids dry. I took a deep breath, wiped the tears from my face, and after the sadness, only anger remained. Back at the flat, my best friend looked at me with concern. "Do you want me to stay with you?" I refused. "I want to be alone for a while." "All right then, I'll head back." As she was leaving, my friend didn't forget to add, "If that bastard Gareth comes looking for you, don't go soft on him." I assured her, "I've already sent him a breakup text, and once I get back, I'll pack up all his things." There was always one thing I kept from Gareth, which was that the place we lived wasn't rented, it was my house. Gareth was quite sensitive about money matters, he didn't like spending my money. Before we decided to move out of university accommodation, I brought him here. I had intended to tell him the truth. But as soon as I opened my mouth, his expression changed, and he was ready to leave with his suitcase. Later, I had to lie to him, saying I was just joking earlier, and only then did he agree to move in. To ease his burden, I even lied to him, saying that due to some connections, the rent for this place, a one-bedroom flat in the city center, was only about £100 a month. Entering the house, I picked up Gareth's suitcase and took out everything related to him from the flat. Our photos together, I took out scissors and cut them in half. It took me over 3 hours to sort everything out. Just as I was pushing his suitcase out the door, Gareth came running back, drenched in sweat. As soon as he entered, Gareth rushed forward to embrace me, but I stepped back. Seeing my expressionless face, Gareth spoke in a hoarse voice. "Audrey, let me explain. Meredith just had a breakup. I was only keeping her company to cheer her up. Cheer her up? I looked at him with contempt. I've never heard that comforting someone requires kissing. Gareth was speechless. Before he could continue, I took out my phone and showed him the Twitter post from Meredith's roommate's alternate account. You two seem quite stable. If it weren't for Meredith's roommate following you and posting photos on Twitter, I wouldn't have discovered you were cheating. Gareth looked at the intimate photo, his heart racing. He never expected someone would see him on a date with Meredith and secretly take pictures. Audrey, please forgive me. I was just confused for a moment. I promise, Meredith and I only went out for a few meals, nothing else happened. Looking at his panicked expression, I said coldly, Gareth, I've told you before, I have a mental aversion to infidelity. If you had a change of heart, you could have told me. I wouldn't have clung on. But I never imagined you'd be two-timing. If I hadn't accidentally caught you today, how long were you planning to keep this secret? Gareth stammered for a while without answering. I rolled my eyes, no longer wanting to see his face. I pushed his luggage forward. Take your bags and get out. Gareth refused, saying, I rented this flat too, I'm not moving. I scoffed and told him the truth about the flat. We signed a contract. I'll transfer you triple the penalty fee. Now please leave immediately. Gareth had never been treated so coldly by me before. Perhaps because of the flat issue, his inferiority complex returned, and he angrily pointed at me. If you hadn't always looked down on me, I wouldn't have gone with Meredith. This is all your fault. What are you saying? My lips trembled, as if I'd heard something laughable. Gareth's face turned ashen, his tone full of resentment. I've known this flat was yours for a long time. For 3 years, you've been treating me like a fool. You just think I'm poor. When I invite you out for street food, you always make excuses. It's because I'm poor. I glared at him and retorted, don't you know I have stomach issues and can't eat that stuff? A flash of guilt crossed Gareth's eyes, but he quickly hardened his attitude again. What's wrong with eating it once? Would it kill you? You just looked down on me. I was speechless. Only today did I realize how ridiculous Gareth truly was. Gareth once brought home some barbecue. I didn't want to eat it then, and he immediately became upset. With no choice, to cheer him up, I forced myself to take a bite. As a result, that night my stomach hurt unbearably, and I ended up in the hospital. Since then, I've stayed far away from barbecue and street food stalls. Gareth knew about this, but I inadvertently discovered he hadn't taken my illness to heart at all. Instead, he harbored resentment towards me because of it. Get out, and never appear in front of me again, I pointed to the door, kicking him out. Gareth still wanted to stay. I clenched my fists and warned him, Jillian and I have practiced kickboxing together. If you don't want to get beaten up, leave right now. Gareth's face changed. The blow he received earlier had sent him to the hospital, which was why it took him so long to return. Over the next few days, Gareth Cartwright bombarded me with messages and phone calls in a desperate attempt to win me back. Ironically, I discovered that he was still secretly in contact with Meredith, his little first-year sweetheart. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and sent him a message. If you harass me again, I'll post about your cheating on the university forum. To the outside world, Gareth was seen as a polite and refined senior student. If this got out, his reputation would be ruined. Faced with my threat, Gareth finally backed off. Hello, senior. We meet again. As I was on my way to the library, someone suddenly appeared and blocked my path. I turned slightly, and oh, this person looked familiar. It's you! I looked at him with surprise. Aren't you the bartender? Allow me to introduce myself properly, the man said with a smile spreading across his face. I'm Aubrey Waldron, a first-year student. What's your name, senior? I replied coolly, Bronte Hollingworth. As soon as I finished speaking, Aubrey cheerfully said, what a coincidence, I had a childhood neighbor with a similar name. I paused, examining him carefully before asking uncertainly, are you that chubby little boy? Aubrey chuckled, stretching his arms and turning in front of me. If you can recognize me looking like this now, I'm not sure if I should praise your keen eye or your excellent memory. To be honest, I was quite surprised when he confirmed it. Aubrey had changed so much. He was chubby as a child, always clumsy, so people often bullied him. It wasn't until one day when I saw him covered in bruises that I couldn't stand it anymore and beat up those bullies. Later, as my father's business grew more successful, our whole family moved to a more prosperous city. Because of that, I lost touch with the chubby little boy. Now, we've unexpectedly reunited here. The once chubby little boy had transformed into a tall, handsome man. I was about to compliment him when he suddenly hugged me. I froze, just about to push him away when an angry voice rang out nearby. "What are you doing?" I turned my head to see Gareth standing not far away, his face dark with anger, with Meredith clinging to his arm. Meredith looked at Aubrey and me curiously, then chuckled. Well, Bronte. I didn't expect you to find a new boyfriend so quickly." Hearing this, Gareth's gaze turned cold, and he said sarcastically, "Bronte Hollingworth, you're really something. I thought something was off when I saw you two together last time. Now I see, you were fooling around with him at the pub that day." I pushed Aubrey away, rolled my eyes at the pair, and turned to leave. I couldn't be bothered to say a single word to either of them. Seeing herself being ignored, Gareth grew even more furious. "What's the matter? Trying to run away because I hit the nail on the head?" At his words, I couldn't help but let out a scornful laugh. "Gareth, I never thought you'd have such a fetish. So eager to be a cuckold, are you?" Gareth's face darkened. Seeing him about to speak again, I guessed it wouldn't be anything pleasant, so I cut him off. "Gareth, I'm not like you. I'm not as promiscuous as you are. In the future, do me a favor and stay far away when you see me. Otherwise, I'll give you a thrashing every time I see you." Gareth's expression changed. Suddenly, he seemed to remember something. His eyebrows raised slightly. "Your friend put me in the hospital to get revenge for you." As he mentioned my best friend, I felt an inexplicable sense of foreboding. Sure enough, the next second, I heard Gareth say smugly, "I'll press charges against her for attempted murder." Upon hearing this, my gaze immediately turned icy cold. Aubrey, who had been watching the drama unfold, chimed in, "I'm sorry, but do you have any evidence that she assaulted you? That coffee shop has CCTV. I'm on good terms with the owner, I can ask him to retrieve the footage." Gareth's expression was very calm, but Aubrey's next words made his face change dramatically. "I'm afraid you won't be able to do that." Aubrey's lips curled into a slight smirk. The CCTV in the coffee shop was broken. There's no footage of what happened that night. Gareth glanced at him disdainfully. That coffee shop just opened. They spent a fortune on the equipment. How could it be broken? Aubrey's face bore an ambiguous smile. "I said it's broken, so it's broken." Gareth couldn't be bothered to deal with him anymore. He turned to look at me, saying mockingly, "Is this your new boyfriend? Your taste has really gone downhill. Still better than before, isn't it?" I retorted. "You," Gareth felt anger bubbling up in his chest. "Don't you want to save your best friend? There's something Mr. Cartwright doesn't know." Aubrey spoke up again just as he was threatening me. "That coffee shop is co-owned by me and a friend." Hearing this, Gareth seemed to understand something. With his plan foiled, Gareth still wanted to provoke us, but was stopped by Meredith. "Gareth, darling, my stomach feels a bit off." "Let's go," Meredith said in a coy voice. Hearing that her stomach was uncomfortable, Gareth's expression visibly tensed. He quickly led Meredith away. As they were leaving, Meredith's eyes seemed to casually sweep over Aubrey. I keenly noticed her little gesture and couldn't help but marvel inwardly that Meredith apparently didn't like Gareth as much as she appeared to on the surface. Seeing my eyes still fixed on the departing figures, Aubrey mistakenly thought I still had feelings for Gareth and said irritably, "I really don't know what you see in a guy like that." "I have no feelings for him anymore," I said calmly. Over the years, I had constantly accommodated Gareth's temper, which gradually wore away any affection I had for him bit by bit. The affair was the last straw that broke the camel's back in our relationship. Realizing that I truly didn't like Gareth anymore, Aubrey turned his head and smiled secretly. I looked at him solemnly. "I've been through one failed relationship. I'm not ready to jump into a new one right now, do you understand?" Hearing this, Aubrey's expression froze for a moment before he regained his composure. It's all right, I have plenty of time. The implication was that he was willing to wait. Ever since that day when Aubrey Waldron said he wanted to pursue me, he's been making a grand show of it for the past few days, sending flowers and bringing me meals. I've told him several times not to meet up, but each time he smiles and agrees, only to continue his efforts the next day. Left with no choice, I've been timing my movements to avoid him. However, to my surprise, this chap has gone as far as paying someone to track my whereabouts just to corner me. Honestly, this behavior really puts me off. Perhaps noticing my displeasure, Aubrey put on a pitiful face and said, I'm just afraid someone else might snatch you away. I must admit, his woeful expression could easily soften one's heart. I warned him, if you keep having me followed, don't blame me for getting nasty. I clenched my fist and waved it in front of him for emphasis. To my surprise, Aubrey grabbed my hand and said, all right, I won't have you followed anymore. Hearing this, I breathed a sigh of relief. But the very next second, I heard him say, but I won't give up pursuing you. I let out an exasperated sigh and questioned, we only cared for each other briefly as children. How on earth did you come to fancy me? We've barely interacted for a week since our reunion. I don't understand him, and he doesn't understand me. I can't fathom how he's developed feelings for me. Hearing my words, Aubrey's expression grew complex. After a moment of silence, he spoke, do you remember what happened on your birthday 3 years ago? I was taken aback, my eyes glazing over as I fell into reminiscence. Of course I remembered that day. That morning, I had been excitedly driving to meet my best friend when I got into a car accident. The impact knocked me unconscious in the car. When I came to, I was lying in a hospital bed with Gareth Cartwright, battered and bruised, watching over me. From Gareth, I learned that he had been passing by, rescued me, and rushed me to the hospital for emergency treatment. Thank you for saving me, I said to Gareth. I heard you covered the medical expenses. I'll transfer the money to you right away. Hearing this, Gareth looked a bit crestfallen and hinted, there's no need. I'm just glad you're all right. I avoided his intense gaze. Before this incident, Gareth had been pursuing me for over a month. But I felt nothing for him and wasn't about to change my mind because of this event. I smiled politely and said, I can't allow that. I never leave debts unpaid. I have your WhatsApp. I'll transfer the money to you later. Gareth must have sensed my indifference, as he left shortly after. After he left, I immediately applied for discharge from the hospital. Due to my stomach issues, I often went to the hospital for checkups. I despised the smell of hospitals and couldn't bear to stay there a moment longer. As I walked out of the hospital entrance, I saw Gareth Cartwright running towards me, carrying a thermos food container. When he reached me, he was drenched in sweat. Are you leaving? Gareth panted. I nodded and asked him, why are you here? Gareth smiled awkwardly and lifted the container in his hand. I remembered your stomach troubles and thought you might not like the hospital canteen food, so I made you a meal and brought it over. For some reason, hearing those words made my heart skip a beat. I lowered my gaze and said softly, I'm leaving now, so what are you going to do with that food? It's fine, I'll eat it later, Gareth shrugged. I gave him a long look, then smiled and said, I haven't eaten yet. Why don't I try your cooking? Gareth's face immediately lit up with a radiant smile. It was on that day that I agreed to Gareth's pursuit, and we became a couple. Thinking about this, I became lost in thought for a moment. Seeing me distracted, Aubrey Waldron's expression soured. He said in a low voice, are you thinking about Gareth? I suddenly realized, if you hadn't mentioned him, I would have almost forgotten. Hearing me say this, Aubrey's expression improved slightly. He changed the subject. Do you remember what happened that day? Of course I remember. I was in a car accident that day, and Gareth saved me. I began to tell him about the events of that day. For some reason, Aubrey's face grew dark, as if someone had angered him. Hey, what's wrong? I looked at him with concern. Aubrey stared at me intently, then suddenly muttered a curse under his breath. I found his sudden outburst of temper rather puzzling. Then, catching me off guard, he reached out and grabbed my head, starting to ruffle my hair. I tried to turn my head to break free, but was surprised to find his grip too strong for me to move. "You're as dumb as a rock," Aubrey suddenly said. I was furious. Not only was he kneading my head like dough, but he was also insulting me. I lifted my foot to kick him, but Aubrey reacted quickly, nimbly dodging. That was close. "You're quite vicious," Aubrey patted his chest, looking relieved. "If you'd crippled me, you'd be set for life." I blushed and glared at him. "What's gotten into you? Bronte Hollingworth, won't you consider me?" Aubrey looked at me seriously. I was startled by his words and shook my head. Apart from knowing that Aubrey was a childhood neighbor, I had no impression of him. How could I possibly be with him? One rash decision was enough. There was no need to make another mistake. Since that conversation, I hadn't seen Aubrey again. I felt a bit disappointed, but soon forgot about him as I immersed myself in writing my thesis. As the evening drew in, I continued working on my paper in my room. Suddenly, I felt a twinge in my stomach and realized I was feeling unwell. Before long, my forehead was covered in cold sweat, and the pain in my abdomen became unbearable. Fighting through the discomfort, I reached for my phone and sent a message to my bestie. About 10 minutes later, there was an urgent knock at the door. I was confused. My bestie had a key to my flat, so why would she be knocking? Without thinking too much about it, I struggled to my feet and made my way to the door. As I opened it, I was surprised to see Aubrey standing there. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Noticing my pale complexion, Aubrey pursed his lips and asked, "How long has it been since you've eaten?" I blinked, trying to remember. "About 6 or 7 hours, I think." Hearing this, Aubrey's expression darkened, and he scooped me up into his arms without warning. "I'm taking you to the hospital," he said firmly. "That's not necessary," I protested weakly. Aubrey shot me a stern look. "If you don't want me to call your father and tell him about this, you'd better keep quiet." At the mention of my dad, I shrank back. He had only reluctantly agreed to let me live on my own, and if he found out about this, he'd definitely make me move back home. Seeing me nestled quietly in his arms, Aubrey's lips curved into a slight smile. At the Royal London Hospital, the doctor examined me and then scolded Aubrey. "Young man, you need to take better care of your girlfriend. Make sure she eats 3 meals a day, on time." I was startled and about to explain that Aubrey wasn't my boyfriend, but he jumped in before I could speak. "Yes, I'll pay more attention in the future." I pressed my lips together, remaining silent. Eventually, a nurse came to give me an 4 drip, with Aubrey staying by my side the entire time. After all the fuss, we both walked out together. Aubrey, noticing my silence, asked, "Are you angry with me?" I didn't respond. Just then, a delicate voice called out from nearby. "Gareth, isn't that Bronte and Aubrey?" I frowned and looked over to see Gareth smiling, carefully supporting Meredith. Gareth's eyes swept over us, his smile fading slightly. I looked up at where they were standing. It was the obstetrics department. Seeing my troubled expression, Gareth's eyes darted around nervously, as if he wanted to say something. Meredith noticed his attitude and a flash of displeasure crossed her face. She said with a smirk, "Bronte, I wasn't feeling well, so Gareth brought me for a checkup." I watched as she caressed her stomach and replied coldly, "I didn't realize you two had progressed so quickly." Meredith smiled smugly. Gareth looked uncomfortable. "I wonder if you've met Gareth's parents yet?" I asked Meredith. Meredith's brow furrowed. Seeing her reaction, I knew she hadn't. When I was dating Gareth, I had faced difficulties with his mother. Mrs. Cartwright is a woman with a strong desire for control. After Gareth and I started dating, he told his family about our relationship. When his mother found out, she immediately rushed to the university to meet me. As soon as we met, she hinted, both subtly and overtly, that I should drop out of school and marry Gareth so I could quickly get pregnant and give her a grandchild. If Gareth hadn't persuaded her to leave, I would have certainly had a falling out with him right then and there. After that, she called every day, going on about how useless it was for women to study and how they should stay at home and not show their faces in public. Because of this incident, I had my first argument with Gareth. So at this moment, I kindly offered them a suggestion. "Why don't you invite your mum to come, Gareth? That way, Meredith won't be left without someone to look after her. Meredith Lyles seemed a bit displeased with the idea. But I knew her objection wouldn't matter, as Garrett's face immediately showed relief upon hearing it. I understood Mrs. Cartwright's nature. She was a woman desperate for grandchildren. If she found out Meredith was pregnant, she would definitely make her drop out of university and stay at home for the duration of her pregnancy. If Meredith still wanted to be with Gareth, her chances of returning to university would be very slim. As we left the Royal London Hospital, Aubrey finally spoke up. Your desire for revenge is quite strong. Well, I do have good eyesight, I replied. Who would have thought I'd spot the medical report on Gareth, showing a pregnancy of 12 weeks? Meredith had only started university a month ago, yet she was already 3 months pregnant. Judging by Gareth's reaction, the child was definitely his. I scoffed internally, realizing they had been sneaking around behind my back for quite some time. Aubrey raised an eyebrow, noticing my furious expression, and asked, Do you still want to be with Gareth? Of course not, I nodded emphatically. I'm just glad I cut my losses early. If I had found out about this after marrying him, I would have been absolutely livid. Aubrey saw me pat my chest in relief and his lips curled into a slight smile. Afterwards, I made a point of inquiring about Meredith's situation. I learned from her roommate that she hadn't been to university for a week. I was in high spirits and had a wild celebration at home with my bestie. However, as the saying goes, pride comes before a fall. I never imagined that one day I would end up having a drunken one-night stand with someone. Looking at Aubrey Waldron sleeping soundly beside me, I gritted my teeth. My mind kept replaying what had happened last night. Frowning, I pulled the duvet over myself and kicked him off the bed. As he hit the cold floor, Aubrey's eyes snapped open. Seeing me on the bed, he smiled gently. You're awake. How do you feel? Didn't disappoint you, did I? I glared at him, demanding to know what had happened last night. Seeing that I had forgotten everything, Aubrey looked at me suspiciously. You're not trying to deny everything after having your way with me, are you? Nonsense, I retorted. How did you even end up here? I remembered that last night, I was only with my bestie at home. How did this guy show up? Seeing that I had truly forgotten, Aubrey rubbed his forehead and explained reluctantly. Mr. Hollingworth asked me to deliver something to you. Your bestie opened the door when I arrived. Stop, I waved my hand to cut off his rambling. Just tell me how we ended up in bed together. Hearing this, the tips of Aubrey's ears turned slightly red. He said softly, You pulled me in. What? I cried out in disbelief. How could I possibly do such a thing? I knew you wouldn't admit it. Aubrey calmly reached for his phone on the nightstand. Good thing I came prepared. I watched as he fiddled with his phone, then played a recording. I'm so lonely, I heard my own voice, tinged with tears. What are you lonely about? This was Aubrey's voice. Everyone else is paired up, and I'm all alone. As the recording played, I gradually began to remember what had happened yesterday. Tipsy from the alcohol, I was sprawled lazily on the sofa. Aubrey brought me a cup of hot water to drink. Then why don't you accept me? He asked. I turned my head away from his hand, angrily saying, Men are all rubbish. My dad is unfaithful, so was Gareth, I pointed at Aubrey. And you'll be the same in the future. That year when I was 10, everything changed after my dad made a fortune in the casino business. I don't know when my dad started keeping a mistress, while my mum was either at beauty salons or playing mahjong with those posh ladies. After my dad's affair was exposed, my mum cried and made a fuss, but in the end, she left the country with half of the assets after the divorce. After their divorce, they both quickly found new partners. Since then, I stopped believing in love and relationships. Gareth was an exception. I had been lonely for too long, so I tried to take the first step. But the outcome was so unbearable. That's why I dared not accept Aubrey. Seeing me cry silently, Aubrey pulled me into his arms and said softly, I once proved my feelings for you with my life. But you've forgotten all about it. Looking into his deep eyes, perhaps it was the alcohol that made me lose my senses. I grabbed his neck and kissed him. Will you be good to me? I asked him. Aubrey nodded with a smile. After a few seconds of silence, I said, Then let's give it a try. Surprised that I agreed, Aubrey lowered his eyes. You're just drunk and momentarily clear-headed. You'll definitely regret it when you wake up. If I regret it, I'm a dog. Aubrey stared at me for a while, then picked up his phone and pressed the record button. He coaxed me to repeat what I'd said, as if he was tricking a child. I felt a bit impatient, but seeing his serious expression, I thought, fine, I'll humor my new boyfriend a bit. So I repeated what I had just said. After I finished, Aubrey's lips curled into a smile. With this as evidence, I won't be afraid of you denying it. Looking at his usually sharp features now softened, I felt a surge of desire and pounced on him. And then, well, some things happened that aren't suitable for young audiences. I blushed as I imagined those heated scenes in my mind. Seeing my shy reaction, Aubrey Waldron's eyes gleamed. Remembered something? I couldn't utter a word. Noticing this, Aubrey raised an eyebrow. You're not thinking of backing out, are you? I asked cautiously, is that an option? No, it's not, Aubrey replied firmly, and started playing the recording again. I don't know how he operated it. The last sentence kept replaying. The word puppy echoed in my ears repeatedly. Turn it off, please, I begged him. No, Aubrey said, wasn't I good enough last night? Hearing this, I couldn't help but glance at his six-pack abs. Seeing me almost drooling, Aubrey moved his hand, pulling down half the duvet covering him. Sensing his subtle movement, I quickly averted my eyes. With no other choice, I had to propose a condition. Things are moving too fast. Give me some time to think. Aubrey pondered, all right, but only for a week. You must give me an answer in 7 days. I nodded hastily. Anything to escape the current predicament. Seeing my response, Aubrey got up and took the scattered clothes to the bathroom. Hearing the water running inside, I hurried to pick up my clothes. As soon as I got out of bed, my legs went weak, and I almost fell flat on my face. Ignoring the soreness, I put on my clothes and sneaked out while Aubrey was still in the bathroom. I ran downstairs while calling my bestie. Who is it? Disturbing my beauty sleep at the crack of dawn. It's me, I said irritably. Audrey, my bestie asked, puzzled. Do you have a cold? Your voice sounds so hoarse. I blushed. You know what? You really got me into trouble last night. My bestie loudly proclaimed her innocence on the other end. What happened? I was with my boyfriend last night. Hearing this, I got angry. If she hadn't been constantly bragging about how lovey-dovey she was with her boyfriend, I wouldn't have felt so envious of their relationship. So I wouldn't have had a moment of weakness, leading to what happened next. I told her about what happened between Aubrey and me. Upon hearing this, my bestie immediately perked up, swatting away her boyfriend's approaching hand. You should agree. Aubrey is handsome, and he got into our university as the top science student. You're not still hung up on that scumbag Gareth, are you? Listening to her nonstop persuasion during her lunch break, I hung up the phone with a headache. Just as I was about to go downstairs to drive home, I unexpectedly saw Meredith Lyle across the car park. She was standing impatiently next to a car. Beside her was a middle-aged woman, muttering incessantly. The woman's voice was so loud that I could hear it from afar. Meredith, you're pregnant now, how can you still drive? I say, you should give this car to Gareth, so it's convenient for him to go out. Meredith's face looked extremely unpleasant, but considering this was her boyfriend's mother, she could only suppress her anger and say, Mrs. Cartwright, I live far from the university, how can I give the car to Gareth? Hearing this, Hester Cartwright was displeased. Then you should drop out. You're pregnant now, don't tell me you want to waddle around the campus with a big belly for everyone to laugh at. Hearing the noisy words in her ears, Meredith finally couldn't bear it anymore. She lashed out at Hester, I'm not even married to your son yet, stop meddling in my affairs. Hester didn't back down and retorted, you think I want to meddle with you? If you hadn't seduced my son and gotten pregnant with my Cartwright family's first grandchild, I wouldn't bother with a woman like you. Meredith's face turned bright red. Just as she was fuming with anger, Hester said something that made her even more furious. Audrey is much better, she's beautiful and sensible. Meredith's face changed instantly. I couldn't help but chuckle as I watched from the side, marveling at the power Hester Cartwright still held. Perhaps I was too gleeful, as I accidentally let out an audible laugh. Hearing the sound, Meredith turned and spotted me. She glared at me and said, "Audrey Balfour, you're so ill-mannered, eavesdropping on our conversation." "If I'm not mistaken, this is a public space," I retorted. "You're the ones disturbing others by talking so loudly." "Who's really ill-mannered here?" Meredith was about to say something when she noticed my slightly disheveled clothes. She narrowed her eyes, her keen sight catching the red marks on my neck. "Are you with Aubrey now?" she asked, her expression peculiar. "That's none of your business," I snapped back. "Audrey, dear." Hester greeted me with a smile as she spotted me. Seeing her approach, I quickly opened the car door and left. Meredith stared at the luxurious car, her eyes dark with an unreadable expression. Back home, I showered and lay in bed. Thinking about the 1-week agreement, I felt a headache coming on. My thoughts drifted from Aubrey to my parents, and before I knew it, I had dozed off. When I woke up, 5 hours had passed. I picked up my phone to find numerous missed calls. Checking them, I saw calls from my supervisor, classmates, and Aubrey. Frowning, I called my supervisor back first. His agitated voice came through the line. "Audrey Balfour, why are you only returning my call now?" Confused, I asked, "What's wrong?" "What happened?" My supervisor told me to check the university forum first. I opened my laptop, went to the campus forum, and found posts about me. The title "Rich Heiress's Secret Debauchery" stung my eyes. I clicked on it and was greeted by a collage of photos showing me with different men. I stared in shock, utterly bewildered. What on earth were these? I had never taken such photos. "Professor, you must believe me," I explained anxiously over the phone. "I've never been involved in anything like this." "Audrey, I know what kind of person you are," my supervisor's calm voice came through. "But you need to clear this up quickly. If left unchecked, even lies can become truth." He advised me to think carefully about who I might have offended recently. My mind immediately went to Gareth and Meredith. Just then, the doorbell rang. I went to check and saw Aubrey's worried face through the peephole. As soon as I opened the door, Aubrey asked concernedly, "Audrey, are you all right?" I smiled bitterly. How could I be? "Everyone on the forum is talking about me now." Aubrey's face darkened. "I've asked a friend to trace the IP address of the person who posted it. We'll clear your name soon." I asked him, "Do you believe those aren't real?" Aubrey chuckled, "The faker's skills are terrible. You're much prettier than those photos." Hearing this, I frowned. Aubrey's friend was quite skilled, quickly sending back information about the poster. Sitting next to Aubrey, I saw a familiar address on his phone. It was where Gareth was currently renting. My blood boiled, and I gritted my teeth in anger. A flash of fury crossed Aubrey's eyes as he turned to me and asked, "Do you want to handle this, or shall I?" "I'll do it," I said, clenching my fists. Aubrey Waldron, worried about me being alone, decided to accompany me to confront Gareth Cartwright. When Gareth opened the door and saw us, he immediately tried to slam it shut in panic. However, Aubrey forcefully pushed it open with one hand. I held my phone screen up to Gareth's face and said coldly, "Why did you do this?" Gareth, of course, wouldn't admit it. He feigned innocence, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." Seeing him sweating profusely and looking guilty, I became so angry that I punched him in the stomach. Hester Cartwright, hearing the commotion, ran out from her room. Seeing her son in such a pitiful state, she immediately started hurling abuse at me. "You wretch! How dare you hit my son? I'm calling the police on you lot." I raised an eyebrow at her and said, "Go ahead, call them. I'll press criminal charges against your son for libel for what he's done online. Spreading false rumors and defamation can result in up to 3 years in prison." Hearing how serious it was, Hester immediately panicked. She stammered, "It was Meredith Lyle who did it. My son had nothing to do with it." Gareth chimed in, "Meredith secretly used my computer to post those things. I only just found out about all this. I was determined to sue them." With how far this matter had spread, I absolutely wouldn't let them off so easily. Gareth got up and grabbed me, begging for forgiveness. "Audrey, I was wrong. Please forgive me. If this gets blown up, my life will be ruined. I laughed bitterly at his shameless behavior. Gareth, if you've done something like this, you need to have the guts to face the consequences. Not just you, but Meredith as well. Hearing these words, Gareth's body tensed up. Audrey, please, I beg you. I'll explain everything clearly to the university. For the sake of how I once saved your life, please let me and Meredith off. Hearing Gareth say this, Aubrey's expression turned cold. Looking at his panicked state, I didn't soften. I simply shook off his hand. Gareth stumbled backwards, not noticing the shoe rack behind him. His shoulder hit the corner of the upper shelf, causing him to bend over in pain. Seeing this, Hester became enraged and lunged at me. I stepped aside to avoid her. Unable to stop her momentum, she fell flat on the ground. As I was going down the stairs, I heard hurried footsteps behind me, followed by a forceful push. Suddenly, everything started spinning. I felt my body tense up, and something seemed to be flowing down my head. Audrey! Aubrey kicked away Hester, who was trying to attack again, and rushed down the stairs to my side in a few quick steps. As I watched him calling my name in panic, I suddenly felt like I had seen the scene somewhere before. Before I could think more about it, I slipped into darkness. When I opened my eyes, it was already 2 days later. I was lying in the Royal London Hospital, with a haggard-looking Aubrey Waldron by my side. Seeing me wake up, Aubrey quickly asked with concern, Audrey, how are you feeling? Is there any discomfort? I stared at him steadily and asked, Aubrey, were you the one who saved me 3 years ago? Aubrey was taken aback. You remember now? 3 years ago, just before I was going to meet my bestie, my father had sent people to stop me and make me return home for my birthday. I didn't want to face him. So I flagged down a passing car. Coincidentally, the driver was Aubrey, who helped me escape those bodyguards. However, on the way, a drunk driver came speeding towards us. At that critical moment, it was Aubrey who shielded me with his body. As for me, the impact affected my brain, and although there was no major damage, I forgot everything that had happened at that time. What happened to you afterwards? I asked. Aubrey didn't mention that he had been severely injured and had to be in intensive care for several days before his life was saved. He started peeling an apple, nothing much, just stayed in the hospital for a few days, then got out. Looking at his nonchalant manner, I knew the situation must have been far more serious than he let on. Seeing my dejected look, Aubrey reached out to stroke my hair, smiling, that's all in the past now, you don't need to dwell on it. The fact that we're both safe and sound, sitting here talking, is already very fortunate. Though he said this, I felt a bit upset. He had risked his life to save me, and I had forgotten everything. Suddenly, I remembered something and asked with confusion, if you were the one who saved me, how did Gareth Cartwright end up by my side later? Aubrey told me what happened after I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I wanted to know about your condition, so I had someone look into it. From his account, I learned that after our accident, the Waldron family driver's condition wasn't as bad, he only had some minor injuries. He found Aubrey lying there covered in blood and quickly notified the Waldron family to take their young master away. Before leaving, the driver didn't forget about me, he called an ambulance to take me to the hospital. That's when Gareth appeared. He happened to be passing by and stopped to see the accident. When he realized one of the patients was me, he rushed to my side. The doctor said you had a concussion and needed to rest well for a few days. As for the matter on the forum, I've already taken care of it. Aubrey told me to rest well and not worry about university matters. I asked him curiously, what happened to Gareth and Meredith Lyle? Aubrey placed the peeled apple in my hand and wiped the juice from his hands, saying, it was Gareth's mother who pushed you, I've already reported it to the police. The post was made by Meredith. Although Gareth didn't know about it, they've both been expelled from the university. Expelled? I was a bit surprised by this outcome. Gareth was already in his 4th year, being expelled meant all these years of study had gone to waste. Seeing my silence, Aubrey's face darkened. You're not still having feelings for him, are you? I concluded, I just feel like I was blind to have been with someone like that. Hearing this, Aubrey let out a long sigh of relief. Seeing him so nervous, I said, you didn't think I would still have feelings for him, did you? 3 years of a relationship, I can't help but worry. Aubrey looked at me intently. I patted his chest. Instead of worrying about that, you should focus your attention on me. Hearing the implication in my words, Aubrey's eyes immediately lit up. Are you promising to be with me? I lay down and covered myself with the blanket, my voice muffled through the covers. Can't you understand? Of course, Aubrey understood, but he was afraid of misinterpreting. So he insisted on getting a clear answer from me. Impatient with his prodding, I simply sat up and silenced him with a kiss. After several days of recovery, I was finally discharged from the Royal London Hospital. On the day of my discharge, Aubrey Waldron had originally planned to pick me up, but he sent me a last-minute message. He said there was a family matter and he couldn't come to get me for the time being. I replied with a message, "No worries, you take care of your business." After sending it, I walked towards my bestie who was waiting nearby. On the way, my bestie asked me, "Are you really together with Aubrey now?" "Yes, I am." My bestie quite approved of Aubrey and spent the entire journey criticizing Gareth Cartwright while praising Aubrey. I listened to her talk in my ear. At that moment, I spotted some familiar silhouettes through the car window. Then those silhouettes quickly retreated. "Stop the car," I hurriedly called out. "What's wrong?" My bestie stepped on the brake, confused. I didn't say anything, just asked her to reverse. My bestie leaned over and exclaimed in surprise, "Isn't that Aubrey and Meredith Lyle?" I watched them standing by the roadside, Meredith looking excited as she spoke to Aubrey about something. Aubrey, on the other hand, stood there with a cold expression. Suddenly, Meredith threw her arms around Aubrey in an embrace. At that moment, my heart was filled with mixed emotions. After these days of experience, I knew Aubrey had a cold personality and rarely made physical contact with others. I stared, silently counting the time in my head. Now he had been hugging Meredith for about 2 minutes. My bestie fumed, "What's Meredith playing at?" And Aubrey, I was just praising him as a good man, yet he turns around and does this. The more my bestie thought about it, the angrier she became. She was about to get out of the car to teach this pair a lesson. I held her hand, "Let it go, let's leave." Audrey, my bestie, looked at me, unwilling yet concerned. Seeing Aubrey push Meredith away, I lowered my eyes and said coldly, "Perhaps it's a misunderstanding. I'll ask him about it." Seeing me like this, my bestie could only leave with me as I wished. However, before I heard from Aubrey, I received a message from Meredith first. "Let's meet." I bit my lower lip, feeling a bit nervous. Perhaps because I hadn't replied for too long, she sent another message. "Don't you want to know the true face of your new boyfriend?" My head throbbed, and I finally agreed to meet her at the coffee shop near the University of London. "I hope you can break up with Aubrey," she said. I found it laughable. "Why should I listen to you?" Meredith's lips curled into a slight smirk, her eyes looking at me with a hint of triumph. "Actually, the baby in my belly is Aubrey's." Boom! Upon hearing this, I felt as if I had been struck by lightning. I spoke with a strained voice, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Meredith Lyle said, "Do you know why he suddenly started pursuing you?" I had a sudden bad feeling in my heart. Meredith's face was all smiles, "Because Gareth and I are together now, so he's deliberately using you to make me jealous." I didn't believe her words. But the scene from this morning made it difficult for me to refute her confidently. Suppressing the bitterness in my heart, I calmly said, "If what you're saying is true, then why did he almost lose his life for me 3 years ago?" At the mention of this, the smile on Meredith's face faded. "That's because he's kind-hearted, just like when you chased away those bullies for him when you were little." It was only then that I believed Meredith's relationship with Aubrey was indeed not ordinary. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known about something that happened so long ago. I took a deep breath, took out my phone in front of her and said, "I don't believe you. Let's call Aubrey and clear this up." "That's not necessary," Meredith quickly tried to stop me. "Why not?" I decisively pressed the call button. "When he gets here, the 3 of us can have a proper chat." The call was answered after just 1 ring. "What's wrong, Audrey?" Aubrey's voice came through. I saw Meredith's expression turn slightly panicked as I put the call on speaker. "Meredith says the baby is yours. Do you have anything to say about that?" Seeing me come out with it so directly, Meredith's face changed dramatically. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a moment, then Aubrey's cold tone came through. The child in her womb has nothing to do with me. Miss Lyle, what are you thinking now? I gave her a deep look. Just as I was about to hear how she would explain herself, I saw Meredith double over, breathing heavily. Seeing this situation, I knew something was wrong and immediately got up to check on her, only to find a few drops of blood at her feet. My expression changed. The people around us seemed to notice the situation too and quickly gathered around. Aubrey, hearing the commotion, hurriedly asked, "Audrey, what's happening?" I told him about Meredith's condition. "Audrey, get her to the hospital right away." I could hear the urgency in his voice. My heart sank. Although Aubrey had just denied the baby was his, I still had doubts about their relationship. But there was no time to dwell on it now. With the help of kind bystanders, Meredith was rushed to the Royal London Hospital for emergency treatment. Outside the operating room, while I was waiting for the results of the surgery, Aubrey arrived. "How's the baby?" he anxiously asked about Meredith's condition as soon as he saw me. "She's in surgery. We don't know the details yet." My voice was cold. Aubrey saw my expressionless face and seemed to realize something. He reached out to take my hand. I stepped back, avoiding his touch. Aubrey froze. "Aubrey, I'm only giving you one chance to explain." I gripped him tightly. "What's your relationship with Meredith Lyle?" Aubrey looked at my face, hesitated for a moment, and said, "I used Meredith to seduce Gareth." "What?" Just as I was surprised, I didn't expect his next words to shock me even more. "The baby in her belly," Aubrey started this somewhat foolish question. Seeing his expression, I asked suspiciously, "It's not actually related to you, is it?" Aubrey quickly shook his head. "It has nothing to do with me." I didn't quite believe him. If it really had nothing to do with him, then what was that embrace this morning all about? And his anxious and worried attitude was also very strange. Realizing my cold attitude, Aubrey stammered, "The baby is uncle's." I didn't understand what he meant, but seeing his evasive eyes, I immediately understood. My body stiffened. It was quite serious. I trembled inside, feeling that this world was truly absurd. My father's mistress was pregnant, and my current boyfriend had her try to steal my ex-boyfriend with the child. Seeing that I was shaking with anger, Aubrey quickly spilled everything. "Actually, I've liked you for a long time, but you were already with Gareth then. I gave up, but I wasn't willing to, so I paid Meredith to seduce Gareth, to test his feelings for you, and the result. The result is he really cheated." I finished his sentence. "Then how did she get involved with my father?" That's what I wanted to know most now. Aubrey paused. "I only just found out this morning. She's a student sponsored by Mrs. Shaw." Meredith had just arrived in the city and went to visit, and was invited to stay at the Hollingworth house for a few days. Mrs. Shaw, Edith, is my stepmother. Back then, she was the one my father had an affair with. "Meredith is really something," I sneered. Aubrey wanted to comfort me, but I turned my head and told him, "I saw you hugging this morning." Hearing this, Aubrey immediately explained excitedly, "Audrey, believe me, there's nothing between us. She came to tell me who the father of the child was. I was too confused at the moment, that's why she took advantage of me." Seeing his anxious state, I didn't say whether I believed him or not. I've already had someone investigate, and things aren't as he says. We'll know soon enough. Just then, the surgery light went out. The doctor came out and told me, "My condolences, we couldn't save the baby." I took out my phone and sent a message to my father. He should know about such a big matter. "Dad, Meredith Lyle had a miscarriage." Soon I received a reply, "Who's that?" I already knew he was a womanizer. Even after remarrying, he had many women outside. I told him that Meredith was carrying his child. He quickly called me. "Audrey, who is this person? You haven't been tricked by someone, have you?" Seeing that he couldn't remember, I reminded him, "Do you remember the girl Edith had stay at home 3 months ago?" My father remembered. "Oh," he said, "her? But I'm completely innocent with her." "Really?" Seeing that I didn't believe him, my father immediately called out, "Where are you now? I'll come over and explain everything clearly." I gave him the address of the hospital, then waited for his arrival. After hanging up, I thought for a moment, and also sent a message to Gareth. Gareth Cartwright was the first to arrive. He looked completely different from his usual neat and tidy self. Now, he appeared haggard, reeking of alcohol. It seemed he had been going through a rough patch lately. When Gareth saw Aubrey Waldron beside me, a flicker of fear crossed his eyes. He cautiously asked, "You said Meredith was in the hospital. What exactly happened to her?" "Let's wait until everyone's here," I said, giving him a cool glance. We didn't have to wait long before my father rushed in, with my stepmother in tow. Gareth looked at them, confused as to why these unrelated people were here for his girlfriend's matter. "Audrey, I may be a philanderer, but I wouldn't go after a girl in her early 20s. That Meredith Lyle must be trying to commit insurance fraud, thinking our family's wealthy." My father rattled off an explanation as soon as he arrived. To be honest, I didn't really believe my father would be interested in Meredith either. He always preferred women closer to his own age. He said younger girls were too stubborn and prone to causing trouble. Unlike mature women who were more understanding and could part ways amicably if things didn't work out. "Uncle, but she claims the baby she's carrying is yours," Aubrey said, glancing meaningfully at Edith Shaw. "And apparently, it has something to do with Mrs. Shaw." My father seemed to understand something. He turned to question Edith. "What have you done?" Edith quickly waved her hands. "Wilfred, do you think I would let another woman have my husband?" Wilfred Harlington, who had worked his way up from nothing to his current position, wasn't so easily fooled. His face darkened. "But my assets are a different story. On our wedding day, I said all my assets would belong to Audrey in the future," he continued. "You weren't happy with that, so you secretly arranged for someone else to bear my child, planning to adopt the baby in the future to fight for the family fortune, right?" Edith wouldn't admit it. Just as she was about to deny it, Wilfred said gravely, "You'd better answer honestly. Don't make me investigate, or you won't be able to bear the consequences." Knowing Wilfred's capabilities, Edith weakly confessed, "I gave her £5,000, and I'll give her another £5,000 after she has the baby." Wilfred let out a laugh. "Wilfred, I really didn't mean anything else." Seeing his displeasure, Edith cried. "I just wanted a child so badly. I can't have one, so I foolishly did this in a moment of confusion." In the past, if she cried a bit, my father would immediately comfort her. But I knew this time, no matter how pitifully she cried, my father wouldn't soften. Sure enough, my father told her something. "When I divorced Audrey's mother, I had a vasectomy." Hearing this, Edith's facial expression froze. Gareth, standing to the side, looked utterly bewildered. "What's going on? What does my child have to do with you all?" I didn't want to be involved in this mess anymore, so I'll let my father handle things here. Outside the Royal London Hospital, Audrey saw my fuming expression and reached for my hand. "Audrey." I shook him off without even looking at him. Aubrey said earnestly behind me, "It was wrong of me to have someone try to seduce Gareth." I was utterly speechless. That wasn't even why I was angry. To be honest, I was quite grateful to him. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have seen Gareth's true philandering nature. "Let's take some time apart," I said. Aubrey was taken aback. "Are you abandoning me?" I frowned. "I'm not abandoning you." Aubrey started counting on his fingers, once when we were kids, once 3 years ago, and now again. Seeing his hurt look, I explained, "I'm just planning to prepare for my postgraduate studies. I'll be busy with research, so I won't have time to spend with you." Hearing this, Aubrey breathed a sigh of relief. A long time later, my father became single again. Gareth came to find me once more, expressing regret and asking to reconcile. But Aubrey, who had been guarding me closely, gave him a telling off before Meredith arrived to drag him away. As she left, Meredith looked deeply into Aubrey's eyes. Noticing his gaze fixed on me, she gave a bitter smile and said, "I really envy you." Later, I heard that Meredith's child was Gareth's. On Aubrey's graduation day, he came to my office at Shaw Limited with a bouquet of roses. As soon as he entered, he pulled out a ring and got down on one knee to propose. I looked at him. "Is this really necessary?" "Of course it is. If I don't secure you with a ring, what if you run off?" "All right then." I'd been quite satisfied with Aubrey's behavior over the years. I held out my hand, and he slipped the ring onto my ring finger. The wedding date was set. Standing side by side with Aubrey in my wedding dress, I listened as the vicar finished the vows. Aubrey looked at me and sighed, "I've finally married you."